You're listening to In Response, a legacy podcast. A show where three handsome guys talk about their favorite Magic the Gathering format, Legacy.
I'm Peter Plank, the artificer. I've got everything at hand in my Goblin Welders toolbox.
I'm Daniel, the scientist. I ponder precisely about the next move that decides the fate of my opponents.
I'm Philipp, the rogue. I use the graveyard to fuel opponents with agony.
And now, lean back and enjoy.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 73, Modern Horizons 3 spoiler season of
In Response,
A legacy podcast.
I'm Philipp Klein
I am Daniel.
And I'm Peter Plank.
and we're talking about Legacy.
Most of the time.
So at first we have a huge shout out in response to the media section. This is a section of the show where we respond to current topics of the community, where we have to celebrate a little thing. Peter, can you tell us more?
Yeah, so a pretty known player from Austria, Stefan Schütz, known as Mental Misstep on MTGO or as King of Traitors on Twitter, won the MOX. So he basically won the most prestigious tournament basically that we have on MTGO. So huge shout out to Stefan.
Congrats.
You are really good.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, it's a huge achievement. I think he also won last year's Eternal Weekend, and he's probably one of the most prolific players for Austria in the MTG universe, basically.
Yeah, and that's very, of course, very interesting. We are proud of that in that sense, as we are Austrians.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some national pride here.
Yeah. Gotta have this.
We're used to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, huge shout out to him. But
In this episode, we're talking about, like we said beforehand, Modern Horizons 3. So it's right around the corner. I think the pre-release happens exactly when this episode airs.
just 1 week.
Yeah, next week is the release, or it's the pre-release. Yeah, and this is a week before. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, we kind of want to go over some cards with you, and we prepared a pretty small list here.
List, yeah.
But yeah, there are some cards that we think could be really impactful. There are some cards on there that we think are basically enhancing to some archetypes. But we want to start off with like the banger or one of the bangers of the set, and this is Nethergoyf.
Nethergoyf. I mean, this little fella for 1 black, it's an 0-1.
Yeah.
And it basically says for each card type in your or in all graveyards
In your
combined.
graveyard?
No, only in yours, not like the old Tarmogoyf. Okay.
It would be bust.
That would be insane. But I mean, with the power creep, with fire design that we have, maybe it's possible. But yeah, it just says for your graveyard, and it gets 1 power and 1 toughness plus 1.
Yeah, it's a Tamoglyph just for only only your graveyard. But it has this additional bonus if you can escape the card with 3 mana. So you have additional value when you happen to get it removed. You can bring it back. And yeah, it's not significantly better. It's different than Tamoglyph in that sense because it's only one-sided. So graveyard interaction is something that hinders the card from being effective, but you can escape it. So, and it's only 1 mana. So
it's basically like you are more reliant in the decks that play Necrogoyf because it's like most likely be played alongside like Dragon Search Channeler. So if your graveyard is shut down, the Necrogoyf is also shut down. But it's like a really, really strong card on its own, and it deserves some respect.
It's a turn 1, 3, and 4 basically.
yeah, on average probably.
Yeah.
If you build a deck around it, it's pretty strong for just 1 mana. I would compare it to, for example, average Reclaimer also needs a little bit of workaround, but can turn into a 3/4 for 1 mana. I could see it similar in power level. However, maybe better because you don't need that big of a build around, and maybe it's a new threat for Delver strategies. This is what
And most likely seen in something like Grixis
could
strategies.
be.
But
It will try it out. Be tried out for sure.
But it has also some cons that we have to at least tell our listeners here. It's like you said, the graveyard liability
Yeah.
and also the mana constraints. I think if you're building it in Grixis Delver, it's like you now want black on your first turn, blue on your first turn, and red on your first turn.
That's true.
And that could be a challenge for the deck builders to overcome.
yeah. Also, the blue count in the Delver decks needs to be respected. But I think we can go over to the next card. This is definitely not fair as the Nether or Necrogoyf, but we have now Necrodominance, which is like a throwback to a little card that always was told, like, we ban every card until this is the broken card, and then we ban it. So, yeah, Necrodominance, a pretty cool throwback, basically.
Yeah, I think it is often compared to a similar card that sees play in Legacy, which is Doomsday. Just because you can build a combo deck with it that builds around the card in that sense that you, for example, end of turn, draw, I don't know, a whole bunch of cards and then sculpt from these cards the perfect 5, which is similar to Doomsday, to win on the next turn. So strategies like this could evolve. You don't have access to the whole deck when you do it because, well, only maximum, let's say 19 cards if you don't fetch. But still, you know, with Dark Ritual being in the format and you being able to play it on turn 1, it's scary of some sort.
What I really like about this card is that it's an enchantment. So it enables the bargain mode of Besiege the Mirror.
Yeah.
So if you want to get rid of it, it's pretty easy. At first, I think it was basically impossible for decks to get rid of Necropotent.
Yeah.
In the black and blue or mono black shells.
Yeah.
And now mono black has an easy way, or they even want to remove it so they can bargain with Besiege and go for a Tendril skill. So you can basically build the perfect hand and then just snip it away for the win.
It's of course way more restrictive than actual Necropotence, as you only get to draw in the end step or at the beginning, or I think in the
Beginning of the end step.
beginning of end step.
You pay a set
Yeah, yeah.
amount of life that you describe, because like in Necropotence, you pay 1 life whenever you feel like it, and you get it at the beginning of your next, or of the next end step, something along the line.
It's always
triggers on the
the
next
trigger is on the end
yeah.
step, and you maximum hand size is 5, and everything that comes into the graveyard is exiled. That's a drawback for sure, especially for combo decks.
But I think we want to continue with another card that is also kind of a throwback to a card we know. Previously, the counter was balanced, now the power is balanced. We have power balanced here. 2 red for another enchantment we want to talk about here. Any thoughts of this?
I gotta admit, I find it very intriguing. It's it basically works the same. You flip if your opponent plays a card, and then you flip the top of your library, and if it has the same mana value, you may cast that card.
Yeah, for free.
For free.
Yeah.
I can see the implications, like in Delver, when they try to sort your Delver or your Dragon Channel or your Merchant Region, and then you flip a Brainstorm and maybe you find a Force or a Daze or something. The question here is it better than just straight up counterbalance when you counter the spell? That's a question that has to be answered when it's released. But at the moment, I think we're all basically on the same level. It's an interesting card, but I don't think it will make huge waves.
No, I also don't think it will be impactful. Especially when you think in the context of Delver, I still rate counterbalance higher. Especially because Delver is a tempo strategy that tries to constrain the opponent's resources and relies on small just only a few but very impactful threats, and it wants to protect them. This sort of Source of Blushes example is a very, very good one. I don't think you want to get your threat exiled, only you flipping a bolt and you get a free bolt. I mean, you don't have a threat afterwards. You rather want it to be really countered with a counterbalance and then ride your Delver to victory, for example.
Yeah, for me it's basically the same, because like with power balance you both enhance your hand basically, because both get some spells to resolve, and with Delver most of the time you want to restrict your opponent. With counterbalance, just your opponent loses one card in his hand, so it's most of the time just worth more.
But plus points for the design, I would say, because it's really a nice counter to counterbalance kind of.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful card.
Yeah.
So for the next card, we kind of want to talk about, because we have like inside information of power level. At first I want to mention Flare of Cultivation, which is basically like the Nick Fitz stream, I want to say it. But we want to talk about the real card in the cycle, according to inside information, is Flare of Denial. Daniel, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so this is part of the cycle that is the new Force cycle, let's say it. So you can cast these cards for free, and you always have to sacrifice a non-token creature in the color, in the respective color. Yeah, well, I think the green one, as you mentioned, could be potentially interesting. The Flare of Denial is the blue one. This just counters a spell. So the question is, how good is this in the context of Legacy? You know, we have Force of Negation that can get hard casted. A cancel of 3 mana is not the worst thing, and it has the good thing that it's an unconditional counter spell, so it can kill count creatures. But you have to sacrifice a blue creature in order to cast it for free. Maybe in a specific deck,
Cast
like
for free.
yeah. Maybe in a specific deck like Allurin, it would be interesting. But so I have no idea. But when I know it, and I heard Mark-Erik Vogt talk about it on Twitter. He's high on the card, and usually this means the card is good.
The last card in spoiler season he was really high on, and a lot of guys talked him down, was Beanstalk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's true. And before that, it was the One Ring and Bowmaster.
And usually he's pretty good on it. So
yeah,
I would say I will keep my eye on it. And for example, in decks like Allurin or something, I totally see it a good fit. But I don't know if it's really Force of Negation is kind of strong. You know, this is.
Yeah. But to stay.
We'll see.
For future cards, to stay a little bit on theme with Mark, are in control. We have 2 cards. We kind of want to talk about it. The one card is we referenced it basically to Library and Sylvan Library, and this one is Ripples of Undeath. It's an enchantment for 1 and a black, and in the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you mill the top 3 cards, and you may pay 1 and 3 life to put one of the 3 milled cards into your hand.
You have to pay 1 mana also, or is it just 3 life?
If I remember correctly, it should be.
I think it's only 3 life, right?
Is it only 3 life?
I think so.
I will look.
I'm also unsure right now. I also thought it was just free life, but in my opinion, I find it really interesting. Like we said in the pre-show talk, it's one ability, so it can't be responded to in between the milling and the grabbing it from your graveyard. So you can't surgically
or
spell bomb in that moment. So you can get that card for sure. And that's what I really like about it.
Yeah.
And also just milling 3 cards each turn can be really good in the right circumstances and also in the right build.
So Peter, you just have the confirmation that actually you have to pay 1 additional mana, which makes it kind of worse. Well, of course, way worse. Yeah.
For sure, that's way worse. Yeah.
Especially in Legacy compared to Sylvan Library. You can draw up to 3 cards if you wish so. You have to pay more life, of course, but still. And well, there's an upside when you fill your graveyard with it, if you have some synergies with it. But when I think about it, in Legacy there is naturally, with all the spells you play, you usually fuel your graveyard quite well, so you don't need this extra card that actually does it.
Yeah. So just play Phyrex in Arena, am I right?
Could be better, yeah.
Could
or
be
just
better.
civil library.
But
The
yeah,
only thing, just to mention, sorry, but the only thing that is good is it plays around Bowmaster, which is good.
yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
And about removing Bowmaster, or basically removing the board, we have a new Wrath in the skies. So we have Wrath of the Skies, which is basically 2 white and X. And you gain X energy counters. And then you may pay any amount of
Energy.
X energy, or any amount of energy. Doesn't have to be the same as you paid with the mana cost. And you destroy every non-land permanent with CMC lower. Or equal or lower.
Equal or lower.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, or lower as well.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it's the cool thing about this card is actually you can play around previously mentioned counterbalance, for example, because like you can adjust the cost. You can add some future, or you maybe can trick your opponent into flashing things in. Maybe he wants to flash in an endurance, or for example, because you're just paying less and you have energy laying around, or you can keep some stuff on the board because it thinks it will be destroyed, and then you just pay like 1 less. So it's a cool niche card, but we have pass control recently added. So
Yeah, the big thing here is it's just mono white, and it's not dual color. Also, I think the effectiveness of this card depends a little bit on if there are some kind of energy enablers or energy producers that are legacy play worthy outside of Wrath of the Skies.
we have basically like an attuned to ether. I think it's like 1 blue for an instant, draws a card, gains 2 energy, which is basically the best one that we have.
Yeah, and there's also a new one, I think. Or is it the same one?
It's the same.
okay,
new
then
cantrip.
it's a reprint, right? Or something. Yeah.
No.
In Ether World, Attuned to Ether was in Ether World.
Okay, then it's attuned to something else.
Okay.
Attuned to ether was the 1 green that you gain a basic land for
Yeah.
and 2
I think
energy.
this was the card. Yeah. There's a lot of energy action going on in this Modern Horizon. They really choose this kind of as a build around to play with the broken cards that are popular in Legacy and to bring them a little bit into Modern, and sometimes twisting it in such a way that you could see or be interesting for Legacy as well. I don't know if energy will be a thing in Legacy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will be a thing in Modern, to be honest.
Yeah, same.
I mean, for modern, I see the new Alluran in there because it's like kind of good for modern with a lot of energy enablers.
Yeah.
Because the problem with energy was like you had the standalone set in the Kaladesh block. But for modern or legacy formats, you need a high power level form like set to get the counters into the format. Because if energy would have been in Kaladesh block good for legacy, we would still play energy most of the time because it would have been insane and the standard set would be like completely broken.
Yeah.
But to tune
Like the first mirror.
but to tune something down, I think we want to talk about another historical card. Maybe a reference to previous cards. Maybe you know them. They're called like Elemental Blast. And so we have like the Null Elemental Blast, which is basically
A colorless one.
a colorless one. You pay 1, not 1 generic, but 1 colorless for it. And it counters or destroys a monocolored permanent.
Multicolored.
Multicolored?
Yeah.
A multicolored permanent or multicolored spell.
Which is in Legacy not so a big deal because multicolored permanents or spells are not heavily played in Legacy. When you look at the top decks, it's usually monocolored stuff. If it would counter any monocolored,
That would be good.
it would be just
Because I played Vanishing Verse that says for white and a black, exile target monocolored permanent as an instant. And
this would just be better. Yeah.
I gotta admit, this was pretty great actually. And if it would just destroy monocolored things, it would be, oh my god, it would be insane.
Yeah. I like the design again here.
Yeah.
It's really a nice addition to this Pyroblast, Hydroblast kind of thing, and adds a new new kind of interactions. Maybe some decks want to play it for some reason in niche cases, I guess. Eldrazi decks or whatever, colorless decks, I don't know.
But we still need the 3 other colors as a blast. We need
Yeah.
the white,
Yeah.
the black, and the green one.
Well, we have like Veil of Summer for the green one, kind of. If we can count it to a cycle, and then there's
not
nothing really.
The thing is like the two colors
It's
that
a color hoser. That's
Yeah.
the two colors basically that are allowed to counter is most of the time red and blue.
Yep.
So it makes sense that those are.
Yep.
But now we come to a card that is actually able to cast a null elemental blast, and we're talking about the thing where Eldrazi get lost in
Okay.
Ugin's Labyrinth.
Ah,
So Ugin's Labyrinth is basically the new soul land for modern. It's when it enters the battlefield, you may exile a card with CMC 7 or greater from your hand. And if you have a card exiled with it, it can tap for 2 colorless, or it can tap for 1 colorless. And you can tap it and put an exiled card from the card exiled with this card back to your hand.
So basically, the big thing about this card is that it's the first playable or really good soul land for Modern.
yeah.
So Modern suddenly has a land that produces 2 mana on turn 1. That's the first time forever. In Legacy, I don't really see it being better than City of Traitors or Ancient Tomb, because the
Exiling a card is just very
exile
costly.
clause is really hefty.
Even
drawback.
though you get it back at some point, that if there was no wasteland so on going on in Legacy, then I could see this being very interesting. If it would be kind of safe, but you have to spend a card for it, and which kind of decks want to play more than 4 cities and 4 ancient tombs,
Eldrazi Stomping.
12 city or something, 12 or so.
12 City! That's a new name for Eldrazi Stomping.
How do you call it?
Yeah.
Soul 12 or something, yeah.
I don't know. The big problem is like most of the time, if you play Soul Lands in Legacy, you want to accelerate something out on turn 1, a 2-drop, a 3-drop, and you don't want to play 7 drops in this kind of decks. But because we are like kind of into Stompy, do you want to harbring any card in here, Phil?
The Harbinger of the Seas. It's a 2/2. It's basically how's it
It's
called?
an island moon.
Magus of the Sea.
Magus of the Sea. I like that name.
Yeah.
It's a merfolk for 1 blue, a 2/2, and non-basic. It says non-basic lands are islands. The only really, we discussed it beforehand, the only really downside on this card is that it costs 1 blue. It costs 2 blue. That's very, very unfortunate, or else there would be a sudden influx of blue stompy shells everywhere. I for sure, I will build with this card. It's just so funny to build some kind of blue stompy shell with forces. And there was some years ago this meme, Pirate Stompy.
You can bring up this topic again. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one motivation for playing
And
this
we
card.
can try it again. So bring out Pirate Stompy for sure.
But do you want to talk about the good cards that prevent your opponents from playing cards? Because the winter is coming.
Yeah.
For Winter's Moon, Daniel, this is a card that you really wanted to talk about.
Yeah. I think this is a very nice one because it's not as Winter Orb. It's of course punishing duels, and while you are not yourself not playing duels, and not just punishing lots of lands. So if you it says non-basic lands do not.
You may only untap one non-basic land each
So
turn.
if you just have lots of basics, you're unaffected by this card. And in the right deck, this can cause a quite big advantage for you, which you cannot get with Winter Orb, which is just purely symmetrical. Here you only have the advantage that some decks have to use more mana than you. But if you have, maybe at some future point, I'm dreaming if some blue-white control would be viable again or something with lots of basics, you know, it's a miracle style kind of control.
That's sexy.
And then you just have this winter orb for to punish, I don't know, any land deck, any other, even Delver maybe.
Scam deck.
Yeah, just all the dual decks, and you just have maybe one Tundra or so. Feels pretty good, probably. So I think it's a nice thing. It's definitely not gonna be any broken or very, I don't know, heavily played. But I think it's a nice design, nice good card that is up there and playable
Does
in
it
the
cost
red deck.
3 or 2?
2 mana.
2. So you could build 4 back to basics and 4 of this card
Yeah,
and build basic control.
it's kind of a
Basic.
it's in that sense a better back to basics actually.
Yeah, because it's
2
one less,
mana. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have blue. Yeah, and back to basics has seen play in Legacy. So I think this is maybe
that's
an
a good
upgrade.
card. I admit
Yeah.
I haven't thought about the deck building restrictions.
Yeah,
yet. And I thought about the card in a vacuum and I was like, well, that's not that good.
yeah.
But with something as you talked about, like with old blue-white control, there's a hell of a lot of cards that you may be able to cast for free. And I want to jam in with a card. I'm really excited about it to play it soon, basically in Painter.
Yeah.
It's the Waxing Bauble.
Oh, fuck no.
Fuck off. Sorry.
every combo player or
Yeah.
storm player or just hates this card even before it comes out.
Yeah.
Suck it, scammers. But I want to talk about Waxing Bauble. Waxing Bauble is an artifact for 1 mana. 1 generic mana.
Very important.
Very important. With a static ability of, if no mana was spent to cast a spell, counter it, which is symmetrical. So it's basically fair on all fronts.
Yeah.
And for 1 mana and tap it, you can sack it and you draw a card. So it's a really, really good card actually as a main deckable piece for Painter. And for Utsusaga decks in general. But more for Painter because a few Utsusaga decks also play Force of Will, so you really... It's a little bit hindering because
Or
like of
Besiege
both.
the Mirror.
Or Besiege the Mirror, yeah. But in Paint, it's like such a good card in the main deck against the Force of Will decks. You can say...
You have like 7 or 8 blasts. Why are you complaining about Force of Will?
It still feels good.
Fuck you even more.
It's also a good card that you want to have against combo, as you already said.
Yeah.
It's
Want it
such
against
a
Force of Vigor.
Yeah,
you want it
true.
against Force of Vigor.
It's pretty good also against
It's really neat against lands because it needs a lot of time to build them up to 4 mana, like 2 turns. But no, they don't get the Mox Diamond, so it's kind of okay.
I'm really scared of this card, to be honest. I really think, every deck can access this card. It's never a bad draw. You can cycle it if you don't need it. I don't think this is a good card. Combo decks are already quite bad, like Storm versions, let's say. And I always hope that with impactful sets like Modern Horizons, we will get some new addition. Besiege was nice, but it didn't really help.
Modern Horizons.
It's not a Modern Horizon, but it was a pump, a positive pump for the Storm decks, but this now pumps it all the way back down.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you got Mind's Desire. Isn't this great against this card?
This turned out to be, not so good. Yeah, it's completely counter to that. Think of High Tide now. Whatever.
Yeah, but to get to some fair stuff again,
Yeah.
you want to talk about the new Knight, the White of the Reliquary?
Yeah.
It's basically a green and a black for a new Knight of the Reliquary, but now you have to sacrifice a creature for it to access a new land. But yeah, it's enhances it. You can play it on turn 2. It's basically really, really good.
In the deck with lots of creatures.
It's
I would say
insane
yes.
together with Grist. And Grist is like a card that is already played in a lot of Maverick-esque decks. Basically,
Something like Cradle Control, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe could be interesting. To have more options to look for your Cradles or any land that you need. And you naturally have lots of creatures in your deck and your Golgari color. So maybe it will be played there. But Of course, it's not good in those depths kind of decks which are heavily land based. It doesn't synergize well. Of course, we don't have much creatures.
Yeah.
That many creatures.
But I think we chime in with the next few cycle. Not really much said to it again. But the next few cycle could be kind of impactful for Legacy because we have like a deck that is built around those cards. They like that they have two sides of it. And now you gain a free counter spell that you can include in your mana base. A threat, a disenchanted that is called Enchanted, which is stupid. But we have the new modular double-faced cards and the lands for Legacy, which are boltable for old spells.
Yeah, these new lands will revolutionize old spells. I mean, old spells or any combo deck will get host by Vexing Bauble, but at least you can bounce this bauble with the new NDFCs. With the blue one, it's for 1 blue. You bounce a permanent or bounce a target spell, and on the flip side, it's just a land. So that's insane. If your mana base also solves your problems. That's the good thing about Modern Horizons. I mean, we have really impactful hate, and we have impactful answers for this hate. The only downside here, that's 3 mana.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great to pay 3 mana only that your opponent draws a card. Because Vaccine Bubble will just be sacked in response. Yeah. But
if you kill them afterwards, that's
sure. It's a nice thing. It's not broken, I think, by any means, but it's very good. It doesn't have too much cost in it. Those lands are not fetchable. It's the only downside, of course, which would be then maybe
an
way too
upside.
Good. Yeah,
because
which would be maybe too good, maybe.
Yeah, they would.
But just having this as as you said, included in the mana base, it's 1 or 2 copies could be free. I don't know. Maybe if you play Gromox, you can play up to 4.
Yeah, because basically the best cards here are the white one, the blue one, because the blue one is the bounce, the white one is the disenchant.
It's a 4-mana disenchant with a 2/2 body, and the black one is also a 3-drop for 1 black and 2, which
the
is
black
a 3/1.
Black. That's the huge upside here. The black one is black.
It's black, but also the plan B is like a little bit stronger because it exiles target graveyard, and it's a 3/1 that can attack.
And
yeah, that's true.
Those are all really valuable effects on those cards and very usable and impactful.
And just one little funny detail here. On Twitter, I've seen the play testing person. I'm not sure if was it he or she or they, but they were talking about how hard they had fought for putting exactly this name on their card, the Witch Enchanter, because they always played it in the playtesting, and they said, I'm going to play Witch Enchanter, Disenchanter. So that was a funny remark here.
A nice little pun.
Yeah, the player will love it. But
I like it. I live for some kind of puns.
But I want to basically try in some of the good cards that we had a little bit of talk about, and it's the new Beanstalk. It's Kozilek's Unsealing its enchantment for 1 blue and 2 generic. Whenever you cast a spell with mana cost 4, 5, or 6, you get 2 Simon tokens, which are Eldrazi tokens. 0/1, but you can sack it to generate 1 generic mana.
1 colorless.
1 colorless.
Yeah. Which can be important if you play null elemental plus or something.
Exactly. 1 colorless mana. Yeah. And if you cast a spell with CMC 7 or greater,
you draw a card?
You draw
3 cards.
You draw 3?
3 cards.
You draw 3 cards.
That's insane, yeah.
Wow. We wouldn't talk about the card it was.
Yeah.
It would have been 1, but you draw 3.
We would talk about it if it would be 1, for sure. But 3 puts it over the top.
Do you know the count of 7 mana 4/4s with affinity to artifacts? 12.
We have now Frogmite. 4 Frogmite. Then we have 4 Sojourner's Companion. For also 7 mana. And now the Frogmure Enforcer in Modern Horizons 3 also. That's the same affinity for artifacts and a for
You
7
forgot
mana.
Frogmite is the 4 mana 2/2. You mean
Mirror
Enforce
Mirror
is the,
Enforcer.
is the 7 mana 4/4.
But Frogbat is good because it triggers the first ability as well, maybe.
So you gain some mana to later.
And Fog Monitor. Fog Monitor is
Yeah.
also 7 mana.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we have basically 16 cards that can be cast for 1 or less, and draw your 3 cards or 5.
But the hard part here is, in my opinion, finding the 4 copies of Kozilek's Unsealing
Yeah,
to really get this kind of ridiculousness going. Therefore, I think maybe you need some splashing of green for up the beanstalk.
Yeah, it will be interesting and host performance.
I think Beanstalk is an option. I could see it also in some, these existing A-cast shells have Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor to draw cards, and as well as maybe Paradoxical Outcome. You naturally would have lots of 0 mana artifacts to build up your affinity count, and naturally this would work in this kind of shells pretty nicely. Grim Monolith or something also in addition, maybe just to power out your artifacts, and then you just want to find this card and then draw your whole deck basically. Maybe you can even play a combo deck.
You
with
just
Gravestone.
want a Vexing Bauble.
Well, yeah. This Vexing Bubble, this shuts it all up. Damn card.
Damn card to the Vexing Bubble.
Already hate it.
But we kind of round out. We kind of round it out now with a few cards really, really quick. And then we come to the big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just like 1 sentence to the cards.
Okay.
I'm hyped. Death in Texas, White Orchid Phantom. Phil?
Ghost Quarter on a Stick. 1-off.
Sweet.
You think of one. Okay. I have no idea.
Blue cards. Daniel. Brain Search.
Oh, Brain Search. In specific decks, I actually think it could be interesting as a one-off in maybe a control deck even.
Yeah, really strong to bring it back with Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Philip, you consigned to memory.
Interesting cards, countering triggered abilities and colorless spells. The colorless spells are so kind of meh, but the replicate on the triggered abilities may be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Lands. New win condition. Shifting Woodland.
Oh yes. I really like this card.
2 sentences for this card.
Okay. Seems really good with Dark Depths. You get immediately a nice 20/20 if it's in the graveyard. Or just to copy any other land in your toolbox deck. It's an Echoing Deeps with upside, as it can turn into a threat.
And you can cast something with green mana.
Yeah.
Philip. Emperor of Bones.
Maybe it will get tried out in Scaminator as additional animate dead that can be a threat in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. See it. Shortly recursion for it. You can adapt it. Really strong card. Like it. Peter, you want to talk about the new big thing in Painter. You want to talk about the new Titan Fledge. You get 1 hour. No. No, I really want to talk about Fledge.
Yeah.
I really like the new Titan. Its nickname is basically Lightning Helix on a stick, which is a perfect description of the card.
Which is exactly the description of the card.
It's 3 mana. It's basically ETP Lightning Helix, which can be really, really good in the right environment, but can be really, really mediocre in the wrong environment. In regards to the other Titan, it doesn't generate on yours a plus card advantage or on your opponent minus card disadvantage. But in the right environment against creature decks, it can be really, really strong. So, what are the cards?
Flage is great.
Flage
is really, really neat. Daniel, you want to talk about Disruptor Flute?
Yeah. I think this is again. Actually, I would hate this card because I think it's also quite good against combo decks. Obviously.
What it do?
Well, okay, it's a two mana artifact with flash, And when it enters the battlefield, you can name a card. And spells with the name of the card cost 3 mana more to be cast. And activated abilities of...
Costs 3 mana more to activate.
I
Of
think-
this
no, I
card,
th- I
of
think-
this permanent.
I think they can't be activated, right? It's like Epiphany Needle as well.
It's like a Epiphany Needle.
And the casting cost is also text. I think the only text from the casting cost, I think. Maybe we have to double check real quick. But here's the interesting part of that. Epiphany Needle, you have to name it, you have to play it, proactively against combo decks. For example, I don't know, Epiphany Needle against your Helm or something, whatever, or your Grindstone, for example. And you have the knowledge, you can play around with this in mind. You can dig for your removal and then play it. But for example, when I'm playing Storm, and suddenly I want to go for a line, and maybe I have maybe a Wishclaw Talisman involved. I go Besiege for something or whatever. In response, in between the comboing line, you can flash this in, and then name the card. You have to get text.
Wow, yeah.
Either you shut down a Wishclaw Talisman, for example, or you text the next ritual or the next tutor, and you really disrupt the combo plan. And the problem is also combo decks usually play this card preemptively. If they play this card, you can just flash it in them preemptively and then have it still in play. And the opponent still has to deal with it. Yeah. I know it's 2 mana. It's not so, which is not so great. But I think it's quite strong for and it's any deck can again play this damn card. It's again really versatile.
Yeah, it's a unique card with a unique playstyle.
Yeah.
But now we can come to the last 2 basically card types that we want to talk about it. So Daniel, do you want to start off with Nadu?
Nadu. Yes, I'm super hyped. This is the card that I'm most hyped about in the whole Modern Horizon set. Specifically because I think this will be very, very big for Cephalid Breakfast as a deck. Before Bowmaster was printed, you played Staff of the Storyteller as a grinding element, and it was actually a pretty solid deck.
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks, kind of. Then Bowmaster got printed, and Staff was really unplayable. Also, the combo with Bowmasters and so on, not really good. This card, however, I think is incredibly strong because it is a nice threat. For 3 mana, a 3/4 flying is good. It blocks Delver, it blocks DRC. It is also a good attacker. So it's a good threat. And the only thing, the way I think about this card is, I know it's 3 mana, which is a lot in Legacy, but as long as it doesn't get pyroblasted on the stack,
you get value.
You get 2 for 1, kind of. If it gets forced, it's a 2 for 1. If it resolves and it gets sorted, you draw a card, kind of. You trigger the effect immediately, like a Leovold effect, almost.
Most of the time you get 2 because they do it in response to
if you have Shuko or a Nomad, also you can do it in instant speed to target both your Nomad and your
you get 4 triggers out of it.
4 triggers. You can so much value in 1 turn cycle. You can do it in opponent's turn with Nomads as well. So pretty good. And I think it's even a good thing that it stops after 2 times, because if you assemble the combo itself, you don't mill or draw your deck out.
Yeah, that's true.
And you don't want to draw all your dread returns and so on. If it's only 2 cards and the rest goes into graveyard, it's actually good because you want to execute the combo as well. And one upside still, it's blue. You can pitch it to Force. Always the upside.
It's green. You can pitch it to Force of Vigor.
If you want to, yes.
I mean, then the new builds will be banned.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
And last thing, it plays around Bowmaster. You don't draw a card.
Yeah.
You just put it into your hand.
Oh my god. Who would have thought that this is so...
the solution to... I mean, it's 3 mana, which is the big downside. It's legendary, Maybe there's a nice combo with Carcass as well. Target it itself, you get a trigger.
And bounce it.
And bounces, maybe.
Replay it.
Maybe it's not the best, but you know, it's okay if it gets Caracas as well. So.
I mean, maybe there are some lands that can simply target it. We should make a Scryfall, a check or something. I mean,
but the obvious combo is, of course, with Shuku and
Nomads. But if there's just a simple land like Caracas or a land that's playable, like maybe a desert with
a Maze of If.
Yeah.
Maze of If, yeah.
But yeah, I think this would be something for the next episode where we talk a little bit about our decks. So we come to the last 3 cards. So it's basically 3 cards of a cycle.
Yeah.
At first, I want to talk about one of my favorites. I want to take no comments from you guys because it's just my beautiful island where I want to play this card. It's Soren of House Markov. Basically, this is a 2-mana 1/4 with lifelink and extort, where you can basically pay a white or a black and you drain your opponent when you play a spell. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, post-combat main phase, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, exile it and you transform it. There is like 1 card that is currently playable on Legacy that combos really good with the card.
Candy Trail?
Uro.
Thank you very much. I want to see this card in back control, basically. Because when the card flips, you can deal damage equal to amount of life you gained this turn to any target, which can be like a lot of burn to your opponent's face, or you can clear a creature. You can create a food token for the next turn where you can use the ability again, or you gain control of a creature for 6, which is like 2 turns away, which is kind of good.
And now?
So this is the card that I want to see for back control a little bit.
No comment.
No
As you
comment.
requested.
As a request. Now we have the basically little boy's dream of a card, which is Ayani. You both have no thoughts about the card, am I right?
I don't think so. I don't know what it does actually.
I mean, it would be great if I would still be a different Texas player.
What does the card do?
It's basically 2 mana for a 1/2. Really mediocre. But it comes with a 2/1 body. It's a white cat warrior. Cat is really important in this. When 1 or more other cats you control die, you may exile a Ayani and then return it as a planeswalker. So if the 2/1 dies, you gain a planeswalker. It comes in with 3 loyalty. Really important.
Okay.
The +2 is put a +1/+1 count on each cat you control.
Okay.
The 0 is like create the 2/1 white cat warrior creature token, and when you control a red permanent other than a Ayani, he deals equal damage to the number of creatures you control to any target.
Okay.
So if you basically have another red creature out there, it shoots with the 0 ability and you can clear creatures, which is good. But the big thing is, it's at 5 loyalty in the second turn when you use the card. And this is Cataclysm. And the Ayani lives.
Okay,
So
wow,
-4,
that's insane.
So this is the huge thing about Ayani. And I kind of think this can be one of the hidden gems of the set.
It's a 2 mana, right?
It's a 2 mana Cataclysm if the cat dies.
With some setup. Yeah.
With
you
one turn waiting for the Ayani.
Yeah. You gotta have your cat token die before the normal Ayani.
Yeah.
Then it flips, and then you can get it up to 5, and then
Yeah, and next turn you have
Yeah.
5.
I mean, you could play this with Flare of Cultivation.
Is this the white one?
No, the green one.
The green one.
Ah, no, you can't. You can't.
You can't sacrifice
yeah,
tokens.
That you can use.
It's a token and it's not green.
It's a token.
And it's not green.
It's
Yeah.
not greeny.
Yeah. So neither of them work.
And why do you want to? Is Cataclysm is symmetrical?
Ah, yeah, that's true.
I rammed myself to kill my lands.
But your lands will be killed too.
But now we come to the last card, and this is exciting. Each of them, because it's so late in the episode, gets 2 sentences. 1, why do you like this card? And 2, why should it be banned? We have Tamir, Inquisitive Student. It's 1 blue for 0/3 flying, and whenever it attacks you, investigate.
Which is the artifact that draws your card.
get an artifact with two mana, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. When you draw the third card in a turn, third card familiar, do you know Brainstorm? Exile Tamio, then return her to the battlefield transformed under your control. Which is cool. Then you have, it comes with 2, so the lowest loyalty you get basically out of the Flipwalkers, +2 until your next turn. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets -1/-0 until end of turn. So it's Jace, Architect of Thought, basically, who had that ability, which dampens your opponent's pressure. -3, return target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard to your hand. If it's a green card, add 1 mana of any color. Not really that impactful, but you plus it once. On the next turn, you can minus it for +1 card advantage. Most of the time, you don't really want to flip this card because, like, when you attack, you gain card advantage as well. And the -7 is draw cards equal to the half number of cards in your library rounded up. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. Do you know which sentence this references? It references you win the game.
It references you die on the spot to a bowmaster. That's what it references.
True.
So I take my 2 sentences. You don't, like I said, you don't want to attack.
You don't want to flip it.
You don't want to flip it. You can protect it with Brainstorm, but you die to Bowmaster if you ult it. So no bannings here.
Daniel?
I agree also with no bannings. I think it's the best of the planeswalkers that are in the cycle. And I think the front side is really okay-ish, kind of. It's really okay because it's a value engine as it is. But the backside, I think, is a little bit underwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah. I personally think that the front side is really, really insane. We have to see which shell it ends in, because it's like not really delver because it doesn't pressure the life totals, but it's a 1-drop that generate card advantage. The 2 1-drops that we, or 1 or 2 drops that we had that generate card advantage was on the one side Dreaded Arcanist. He had the upside of twice bolting your opponent to be pressure, and Ragavan, which was a 2/1, so he pressured life total as itself. But it's a card advantage for 1 mana that you can play in a day shell. Maybe not, because you need mana to convert the card advantage. But it's a very, very unique card, and if a shell gets broken around it, this card will be horrendous to play against.
I think this will be most likely a turn 2 play also, because you most likely want to accompany it with Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Or maybe a turn 3 even.
As protection.
So, as protection. I don't know if you want to play it. Well, on the play, maybe turn 1 still look good, because you can start attacking and get some investigative
Days
tokens.
or force.
Yeah.
It's
So
okay.
for 1 mana, having a Wincon, a Planeswalker, is of course not the best, not the worst.
So if you want to hear some future thoughts about us, including some of the recently mentioned cards in our decks, you can listen the next episode right on the release weekend of Modern Horizon 3.
So if you like what we are doing, consider following us on our social media. It's @response_legacy. And you can find me on social media. It's @FinnickMTG on Twitter. You also, we have totally forgot, but we won't forget now. Shout out to our patrons, Christian Neutz, Moritz Eichmeier, Matt Duncan. Thank you very much for making all this possible.
Thank you.
And yeah, Peter, where can we find you on social media? Do you now have an Instagram?
No, but you can.
But you will soon.
But you can find me on X, previously known as Twitter, @UnicornLord, but the O in the Lord is a 0. What about you, Phil? But
Phil.
you talked about it, but I want to talk to Daniel here.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter also. It's @FlyingDelver, and also on Instagram, but not Flying Delver. I'm just Daniel there.
So thank you very much. We see you in 2 weeks.
This was In Response, a legacy podcast. If you enjoyed the ride, feel free to support the show by following, leaving a review, or subscribe on patreon.com/response_legacy.